Hello YouTube, it's been a while since I've made one of these. I've not been able to access YouTube in a while because of them getting rid of their direct upload option for webcam. I figured another way to do it. Currently, I would like to say, if you don't mind, that I have grown a bit of a double goatee. I'm trying to. Unfortunately, I've also grown a little bit of a neck beard. I need to get rid of it. So yeah. In regards to recent news, this is not going to be a video on this subject, but in regards to, I want to talk about wrestling, but in regard to recent news, Chief Justice Scalia has died. I was not a fan of the man, but I do not want to disparage the dead too roughly. I will say, in an ironic twist, only hours before his death, I did post to Facebook The Riding Forth by Anton LaVey. I'm sure some of you might be familiar with. So that's that. But obviously I'm not so arrogant as I think I had anything to do with his death, and I would hope for my own sake I'm not. I would hope for my own sake I'm not, simply because I don't want something to do with another man's death or even misfortune. But he was who he was, and what happened, and that's that. And I don't want to talk about that anymore now, because I would like to talk about wrestling. Enough with the death and bitterness and hatred that consumes my soul and makes up my life. Let's instead talk about wrestling, pro wrestling. This is going to be a happy video. Happy. It's me bitching about wrestling, This is going to be a small critique and picking apart of Vince Russo's video on what was it? Oh yeah. How does Ring of Honor, New Japan, Lucha Underground, WWE, TNA, all these companies, how do they stack up? How does TNA and WWE and all these companies stack up in terms of a TV show? Now, I agreed with most of the fucking video. Here's my only disagreement. My only point of disagreement. Real point of disagreement. He says Ring of Honor is not story-oriented. It's all about the wrestling. It's got a niche audience. It doesn't have any characters. They don't wear flamboyant ring gear, but first of all, they're flamboyant ring gear alone. Let's look at Dalton Castle. What would you call the way Dalton Castle enters the ring? He has no flamboyant entrances. He has no flamboyant or colorful ring gear. The guy he's the party peacock, and he raises his arm, and you have the cape that comes out like rings, and it's the two kind of sex slaves, the male sex slaves he has with him, and everything else. And the masquerade mask. He's as flamboyant as it gets. He has an awesome song. Dalton Wants It Now. He's so fucking cool. He's a gay character, one of a kind, really, a positively spotlighted and a positively presented gay character. Even Goldust wasn't that, at least not at first. So that's something cool, to say the least. And again, characters, what would you call Dalton Castle? Dalton Castle is about as fucking flamboyant and cool and interesting of a character as you get. And again, it doesn't just stop at Dalton Castle. You have, for example, Truth Martini, who's a bit of a Rico-ish character. He has a little bit of a sinister miniature type edge to his character, kind of demonic or devilish character. Like when he comes to the ring, they have that laugh. He's actually a straight character. He's a bit of a pervert, kind of sleazy. What's the guy's name? Joey Ryan-ish. If you know anything about Joey Ryan, another great character I would like to see do work in Ring of Honor. He has a girlfriend that he tags with, and he'll have intergender matches, and he's kind of like the modern day, what the motherfucker's name? I can't think of his name. The guy that Jerry Lawler wrestled in Tennessee, Andy Kaufman. He's kind of Andy Kaufman-ish type character. Very good. You have Kingdom, and you have Jay Lethal, who's is a realistic character. He's not over the top. I don't think he should be. I don't think over the top characters in many cases are necessary. Certainly not nothing to the extent of a leprechaun. I would hope Russo thinks the same. But you have Jay Lethal, who is a Ric Flair-ish slash Ric Flair-ish type slash Macho Man-ish character, kind of like Macho Man and Ric Flair, a lot like them. He's the only black world champion in the wrestling industry right now that I know of. WWE's only ever had one. That was The Rock. You now have Jay Lethal. That's making leaps and bounds. Young Bucks, a DX slash NWO type tribute group. Very entertaining. You have lots of interesting, fascinating characters in wrestling. Let's just leave it there, because I could go on and on and on talking about all the interesting characters in Ring of Honor. So again, you might say the storytelling is a bit flat, falls a bit flat, and I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you. The storytelling is somewhat flat. I would even agree with you that there is a bit too much wrestling. But for you to sit there and say that there's no characters, what the fuck? Even if you don't like the characters, to say that there is no characters makes no sense. Because there absolutely is. On the another element, he talks about WWE being ahead of, and then he talks about New Japan being ahead of Ring of Honor. And he says that they do have some backstage and segment-oriented content more than Ring of Honor. It's actually the opposite. Ring of Honor is more of a wrestling-oriented product. That's true, more UFC type product. But Ring of Honor certainly has more content backstage and having to do with character interaction than fucking New Japan does. Then he goes on to say WWE is ahead of them because they're a spectacle. They're a spectacle because they have billions of dollars, they have a larger audience, they have the USA Network behind them, and because these motherfuckers have these massive arenas and better production values than even Lucha Underground can fucking fork out, because they have all this damn money because they screwed all these other promotions over. It has jack shit to do with fucking Ring of Honor not trying. Then you have, for example, he says that the Divas division, they at least try to have the Divas and incorporate that audience. Hey man, I have news for you. The Divas division is the biggest part, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of men, including myself, are tuning out. And it's not because we don't like women's wrestling, it's because of the production and the promotion and the presentation of those women. When you have a woman on there slapping a guy every damn week, or every other week, on an 80% male, for an 80% male audience, or something geared towards an 80% male audience, you can't expect us to tune around and watch this crap. Okay, and then you have these same women, they act like Barbie dolls, they all look the same, you can't figure out who's a good guy or a bad guy. They're trying to promote feminism, they're shoving that agenda down our throats. That's not good. Now, if you do it like Lucha Underground does it, in the way that Lucha Underground promotes their women's division, wonderful. Absolutely great character development. Good matches. They have great matches with men. Back and forth matches. They win some, they lose some. You like it, you know. Good women's division. But just having a women's division isn't helping shit. Then you have the crap with, there's a lot of this shit he said I didn't agree with. Now the rest of it, Lucha Underground, he said was a better show, the best show on television. I agree with that. He says that TNA, and this was right when TNA had first went to pop, so he couldn't see their progress at that point. But since then they've become better. But I do agree that before that, when they were in Destination America, they were the worst they ever were, and they certainly became a lot worse after Russo left. I agree with him about a lot of shit. But to say that Ring of Honor is not a great show because it's a little bit more wrestling oriented, that's bullshit. And it goes back to like what I would say about Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette thinks wrestling should be more serious. Well, I might agree with that on some level. Here's the problem. He doesn't just want one promotion to be more serious and say, we need something like that. You need something, have something for me. He tries to intimidate and bully every other promotion to this Borg-like mentality of let's all be the same. That's bullshit. It should be a situation of, look, you have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just like it was back in the territories, just like with WCW and ECW and WWF. You want a little bit of everything for a little bit of everybody. And he said that himself. You have to have a little bit of everything on the show. And I think personally Ring of Honor does a decent job of trying to provide a little bit of everything for a little bit of everybody. But that's just my mentality. That's all. P666.